Greetings my little gourmets. We're going to do a little bit of sort of baking, which reminds me I haven't put the oven on yet. I need to put the oven on about 175 fan. Okay, I better get that on now before I forget. And we're going to make a little sort of sweet treat. It's a Middle Eastern sweet sort of dessert, sort of cake sort of thing. Goes by a variety of names depending on where it's made, if you like, but it's essentially the same thing. Harisseh, which originally came up because I was looking at some Palestinian cuisine, okay, but it's also known as namura or basbousa, I think it's pronounced, okay, but it's sort of that region, Palestine, Jordan, you know, those sort of area, those countries, and it's essentially a semolina based cake, semolina and almonds with a syrup. So that's what we're going to bake. Like I say, we need the oven on up to 175. You'll need a couple of, now I'm making quite a lot of this, okay, so you're going to need some approximately sort of 10-inch square pans. I've got some here, I know that one ain't square, and I've lined it with some baking powder or baking paper, obviously because it's going to be a little bit sticky, and that's essentially it. So let's see how to make some harisseh. So what I've got here is some caster sugar, just ordinary white sugar will do fine. I've got 200 grams of that, and then I've got some semolina flour. Okay, I didn't realise semolina is actually wheat. Okay, it's normally durum wheat, okay, and the sort of type of grind it is, and so I've got 250 grams of that, and then you're going to want some chopped almonds. Now this was originally in cup quantities, but trying to convert chopped almonds from cups to grams I thought was going to be a bit iffy, so I've kept the cup measurement. So I've got a cup of chopped almonds. Now what I did, I've got some flaked almonds and I've given them a bit of a rough chopping, and I've got you know, I measured that up after I chopped them, so that's a cup of them in there. And then the only other thing at this stage you're going to want to put in there is some baking powder. How much of that I've got? Baking powder, 3 tablespoons. Is it 3 tablespoons? Just realised, forgot to double that. So I'm just going to have to put a little bit more in, but we're going to put 3 tablespoons in there, and then I'm just going to mix that together before we put in some yogurt, some oil and some rose water. So that's the dry ingredients in there. Now what I'm going to add now is 2 tablespoons of rose water. I've got about 280 mils of sunflower oil, so you want vegetable oil. You don't really want olive oil. I know that will probably be one of the typical oils of the region, but that will impart a little bit of a taste to it. So 1, 2, and then there's some yogurt, some nice full fat yogurt. Okay, what we've got here is 246 grams of that, so in that goes. Okay, I'm going to mix that together, and then I'm going to start adding in the oil, because what I don't want to do is basically make it too sort of wet and oily. Okay, so I'll see how we go blending in that oil, okay, because basically we want a nice sort of softish dough, okay, which, you know, this isn't that far removed, okay, so I'm not sure I really want all that oil. But then what we'll do is, once we've got a nice soft dough, like I say, to be honest, I don't see that we'll need all that oil. Okay, you can see already It's quite sort of softish, and what we'll do is then that will go into the pan, but before we put it in the pan, we're going to just leave it in the bowl. We're just going to put a cover over it, and we're going to let it rest for half an hour, 30 minutes. Okay, so I'm just going to finish that off, and then we'll just do the resting stage. So that's now rested, and what you'll note is it sort of swells as the flour is obviously absorbing the oil and moisture. And so what we're going to do now is I've readied 2 pans, because like I say, I doubled the original amount. So just in readiness, I've got another pan prepared. I'm suspecting I will probably only use this one larger pan. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm now just going to put the dough into that. It's very sticky, okay, and it doesn't help when you're trying to spread it out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that transferred into there and then smooth the top. But before it goes in the oven, we're just going to add a little finishing touch with some flaked almonds. So I've put it in there, and what I'm now going to do, I'm just going to lightly score the top. Because of the size of the pan I'm using, I'm going to score it so that so it's roughly about inch squares. Okay, and although obviously this is just scoring the top, the reason we're doing that is because I can now see what I intend to be each individual square, and this is where I take one flaked almond piece, a lot of these are broken up, and I'm just going to lay one onto the top of each scored section, if you like. Okay, it's a little bit of decoration. This is then going to go into the oven, where we can cook it for about 20 minutes. Basically, we want the top to look nice and golden and puffy, and we want it to be sort of firm in the centre, if you like. Okay, so we'll keep checking on it, and then when it's done, we'll bring it out, and while it's starting to cool, we'll prepare the syrup, which we'll cut it first, and then we will pour the syrup all over it, so the syrup will go down into the sides and it'll be nice and syrupy. So I'm just going to get them last ones topped, and then, like I say, oven 175. Right, so that's had just 20 minutes, and you can see there, which is interesting now, shows you what my oven's like. This area is a lot obviously darker than the rest of it. The score lines are almost gone, but you can just about make them out. And what we're going to do is we're just going to let this rest in the pan for about 20 minutes to cool, at which point, like I said, what we will do is we will then cut them back into squares. Okay, and we're going to pour a syrup over it. So what we're going to do right now is that we're going to make a syrup. So what I've got in here is 400 grams of caster sugar, and I've got just about 280 grams of water. And what we're going to do is we're now just going to heat this up, okay, and basically once it's, it behaves itself, when it's got up to the boil, we're just going to let it simmer for about 5 minutes, okay, and we're going to need some lemon juice and some rose water to flavour it with. Oops, spilling it everywhere, a little sticky now. Okay, we'll put that in once we've heated it and it's starting to cool down, just before we're ready to pour it on the cake, because otherwise it'd be pointless putting the rose water in, because it will just probably lose a lot of the flavour. So I'm just going to keep this sort of agitated. We're not making caramel, okay? Want to get this up to the boil, and then, like I say, let it simmer for about 5 minutes. Then I'm just going to take it off the heat, and we'll add the final 2 ingredients. That's been simmering for about 5 minutes. Taking it off the heat, and what I'm adding now is 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. So give that a little stir in, and then a teaspoon of rose water, and we'll give that a little stir in. Now, just going to put that to one side, and I'll put the lids on before I knock everything over. Now, our cake, as such, just coming up for about 20 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're now going to remove it from the pan, and I'm going to cut it into them squares, and we'll transfer it on to like a serving platter or whatever. So now what we do is, while it's still warm, we're now going to drizzle this syrup all over the cake. Now I've had to split it into 2 serving plates. Okay, there's a lot of syrup here. Okay, we want to make sure these things are nicely soaked in it. I'm just going to do a little taster one over here. So I'm just going to distribute the rest of this syrup over the cake. Our Middle Eastern sweet treat, Harisseh, Nemora, or basbousa, I think it's pronounced. All right, but it's essentially a semolina cake made with semolina and almonds, and then soaked in a nice rose water and lemon flavoured syrup. Okay, so I'm going to be enjoying that, and when I say I'm enjoying it, let's try a bit now. So I've got one little bit here on its own. I've still got quite a bit of syrup left, so what I should do is I shall let a lot of that just soak up, and if necessary add a little bit more. But this is one bit. This is swimming a little bit in the syrup. I've only just poured syrup over it, as you know. Nice nutty texture, sweet, hint of that rose, but I'll tell you only a hint. Don't really, get the lemon too much. It's not overpowering, just a little hint of lemon, but overall a very nice sweet treat. There we go then. Your syrup soaked semolina cake, courtesy of the Middle East. Well, that's where it came from originally, not where I am.